So then we are back with the modern understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yirmiyahu the prophet, we find a layer of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. So then as we study the holy manuscripts, we truly then enjoy these understandings and these layers as we then live them through, and we enjoy them as the holy documents are showing us the proper path of Yahweh, the true Creator. Let's understand then what's going on then in other parts of the world, where then we have then Australia and also New Zealand, both realms very important during this time of the end. Why are they important? Because the Creator has included every nation, every realm, as He said then in Yirmiyahu chapter 1:8, and the nations were then included in His holy plans, as He describes then those nations taking care of the vineyards and also the animals around the holy cities. There is a very important aspect of this part, because the holy instructions, they do describe how they should take care of the agriculture and the animals, and this truly is then the understanding towards this particular section is giving then the Gentiles a place in the holy plan. Let's try to understand what's going on then in Australia. Unfortunately, many companies are leaving Australia because of the high cost of manufacturing. Ford already has closed its future plans, the holding company, and also GM, and also maybe Toyota is planning on having then the factory closed. Not sure yet. Why do we then have to mention these countries? Because also New Zealand, there is this smeltering company over there of aluminum, extremely important for aviation and for any kind of industry using aluminum. Let's be very extremely clear as far as Daniel the 11th chapter. This chapter particularly does not mention negative, does not mention other countries other than the kingdom of the north, east, and south. We have to understand from a secondary perspective what the countries of the world and realms included, what they should do as far as the plan of Daniel the 11th chapter. So then, what can we expect of Daniel the 11th chapter? Well, the kingdom of the east is extremely important. China takes place on the 10th chapter of Daniel. Daniel was then obviously a very important person. He was a tradesperson. He was a politician. He was also a prophet of the Holy Creator. He was acquainted of tabernacling. But he was then entrusted with helping the Gentiles. The Gentiles were lost. The Gentiles did not have the holy covenant with Abraham. They did not have then the importance of the link with the Holy Creator of the heavens and the earth. Through the holy plan, then the Creator decided of having a place for the Gentiles as they make themselves available through discipline, learning the holy instructions, as then later Shaliach Shaul mentioned, renew the mind with the holy instructions. Let's understand then the 11th chapter of Daniel. Daniel mentions of those kingdoms, kingdom of the north, kingdom of the east, and kingdom of the south. These are the bases of the iron of the base of the statue of Daniel the 2nd chapter. Daniel was then doing his duty for the king. And then after work he would used to take a nap near the river. It was his custom. He would take a walk by the river, and there he would take a nap. During his time, he did receive many understandings of the time of the end. He was very conservative. Daniel was very how should we say, a person that was very cautious regarding the time of the end, because he was living during the time of pagan kings, and he was very careful in what he would say and do because of the benefit of the Gentiles. And then he also included his own people, where he said for 1,000 years his people would be mixed up with the system of the world, and then later he would have a restoration period where his people would return and then restart in tabernacling. Let's try to understand then the realms of the South Pacific, primarily in Australia and New Zealand. There are no instructions for those places. This is what we can say absolutely for sure. However, we can find a secondary understanding regarding Daniel the 11th chapter of the kingdom of the East, North, and South. What could the nations do in order to make these nations then forward, or forwarding these realms regarding the time of the 11th chapter in the restoration period? It is a secondary understanding. We find then China as the factory of the world. You find the kingdom of the north regarding the military power of Daniel 11 and then verse 14. Then you find the kingdom of the south, a place where tabernacle is going to be at in the land of Cush. Let's try to understand what the nations of the world should do in order to make the 11th chapter then completed. It's very obvious. You find then Australia being a place of a distribution center for the Chinese. How they are going to do this? We have no instructions from the Holy Instructions. We have only understandings of the secondary section of it, or what would make these kingdoms of the north, south, and east then moving forward in the plan of Daniel the 12th chapter, because knowledge would increase for the purposes of trade. Obviously, Daniel is then giving us a path, so then the nations could on themselves then do their part and making a decision, either becoming in line with the Holy Creator or against Him. Those against Him, the end of it is burning. There is absolutely no question regarding this fact, but yet He gives the option. If nations they want harmony, then they must line up with those kingdoms. Does not mean those kingdoms are going to take over. It means there is a system coming in shortly next to 24-25 months, where then downloading in the computers is going to give them a chance of trade directly in their homes. Thus then we understand in Galah or Revelation, the angel is speaking. Some people would be then dirty, and they would continue in then being dirty, and some people would understand the time of the end and be saved. Who is going to be saved versus who are not going to be saved? Those are in the hands of the Creator Himself. However, people they have a chance of knowing the truth and making a decision, either they want to be saved or not. So then, what can we expect of the South Pacific? Very simply, as far as the Holy Instructions, we find no reference of those nations in the South Pacific. There is absolutely none. But we can describe some aspects that can help those kingdoms then moving forward and then completing the Holy Instructions as a whole. What could then take place in New Zealand? There is a smeltering place over there of aluminum. Obviously, China could use some final products to make then their factory even further stronger. As far as Australia, we can understand they have lots of coal. You can understand many islands around them, they are very rich in mineral resources, so you can understand from step to A to Z what they can do to help the plan of Daniel the 11th chapter. As far as tabernacling, there is no change, because the Creator changes not. Northern Sudan is the place of land of Cush. That's where then Yohanan was at when he was 100 years roughly after the ascension of the Messiah, his first city, where he was then gathering the information precisely then to make those 7 cities in Asia Minor profitable for the kingdom of the Creator. We must understand those 7 cities must return. We understand then in Sudan, northern Sudan is the first tabernacling of our time. We understand later then the time of the vengeance is precisely 490 days, the other half of the prophets and the Torah. These then are taking place as we read the holy instructions, but then there is a section of the instructions where then the Shaliach Shaul has mentioned. We must renew our minds with the holy instructions. It's not only being given as step A, B, C. You can't depend upon only a person to lead you by the hand. Shaliach Shaul was mentioning in Romans that they were very diligent during their time, but they must yet read the instructions constantly in order to make sure the layers they are placed then precisely where they belong, so they can be a light for those in the world. Not speaking of the Feast of Lights during the time of the Messiah, only speaking of the light of the Torah as layers are revealed, so then the Gentiles can do the work of the service area precisely described by Yirmiyahu the prophet, chapter 1:8. It's not a truly physical understanding of the service area of Sudan where tabernacle is going to be at. It is becoming part of it. It's doing the mundane work and would make those kingdoms then forwarding themselves, so then the instructions must then be completed. These are for us then so we can forward ourselves first, being acquainted with the holy instructions, because Shaliach Shaul has said we should not be ignorant. We must not be ignorant. And we must be acquainted with the Moadim and with the shadow prophetic events yet in the future. Then the combat of the end is a bit more complicated, because we must unite the understanding that there is no temple. Absolutely no temple. The Messiah said not a stone is going to be left upon another, and the Messiah had put an end to the fact of the temple. There is no temple. What is going to be on Mount Moriah at some point is only a tent that it was during the time of Moshe in the desert. And then the rest of it is going to be the number of the holy cities, as we know so far, then 8 for sure, 7 cities in Asia Minor, and plus on the land of Cush. Those we know are 8. But many more must come, and those numbers are in the hands of the Creator only. We must be obedient as the cities are then formed, then Ruach HaKodesh will instruct from then on. As far as we can understand, we have much work to do, we have much to say and much to study, so then those instructions are then layered properly, awaiting for next year, 21-4 or 71-4, where China, the kingdom of the East, makes a deal with the South, the kingdom of the South, regarding Mr. Xi and Mr. Kabila. So then 11:5, Daniel 11:5 then becomes in motion and is the first cog or the first gear of Ezekiel the first chapter's machine then turns on. From then on, the events are taking place much faster, because we have only 20 minus 1 year for the end of this age. It's very close, it's very near. Some people are going to be saved, some people are not going to be saved, and we must be acquainted, because Shaliach Shaul has warned that we should renew our minds, and the Messiah went further. He gave detailed information regarding the 24th chapter, where then many people would get caught in their mundane situations, thinking that the Creator is a person that would receive any person with sin or not, because the holy instructions were abolished. They are wrong. The holy instructions, they were given because there is a specific way of being saved, and each person must be fruitful regarding the holy instructions and its holy layers. Layer upon layer, understanding upon understanding. So then the world can be saved, and then the new earth, as described by Yeshayahu the prophet, sections of the 65th and 66th chapter, gives you then the new earth. So then, later we're going to evaluate more the combat of the end in Zechariah chapter 5, where then you find both Galals. Then those are obviously the bombs. We already found the information regarding then Leviathan being submarines, and then warfare going on under the water in line with the ships above the water for war. Then we find the ships of Tarshish regarding then trade. Then we link with Galah, the 8th chapter. These are simultaneously placed, so then our minds can be in line with the Holy Creator, and then we become more acquainted with His holy instructions. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.